Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Dare to be a Successful Project Manager, hosted by HRDQ-U and presented by Lou Russell. My name is Sarah, and I will moderate today's webinar. The webinar will be about an hour, and if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them into that questions box. We'll be answering these questions as they come in live at the end of the presentation or in an email if we do run out of time. The CEO and Queen of RMA, Lou Russell, is an executive consultant, popular speaker, and respected author whose passion is to create growth in companies by guiding the growth of their people. In her speaking, training, and writing, she draws on 30 years of experience helping organizations to achieve their full potential. Lou is the author of 7 popular books and has spoken at more than 300 conferences, including ATD International and the Society of Information Management. Welcome, Lou, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah. Everybody, where you are right now, just clap your hands. We won't hear you, but it'll just make you feel really good, like we're at the beginning of something. So thank you very much for being here. This presentation is going to be about how we use the rocket game, basically, in project management, in our project management training. So it really is, this is a combo version of this. We're going to do the HRDQ rocket game, and we're going to talk about a little bit about project management. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in your question area as you go. I'm going to try to catch them, but we're also going to have a little bit of time at the end if there are other questions, and if I miss some, then, you know, we're going to send you the answers later by email, the old school way. So I'm really glad you're here. Really appreciate all the people coming in the front door. That's wonderful. Brittany Helt is here with me. She works with me at Russell Martin and Associates. She actually does all the work. I just do stuff like this. So she's going to be sending some stuff in the chat window too. So watch that coming your way. So now, there we go. Okay. So this is what we're talking about, Dare to Properly Manage Resources. I'm going to say more about that in a minute. But what I would like you to do, oops, that was me, sorry. It's got a little delay on it. There we go. What I would like you to do is I would like you to think about these questions. I want you to think of a time that you've been on a project recently. And what you're going to do is you're going to type the answers that I'm going to ask for in the chat window, okay? So first I want you to think of a time, really, it could have been just before you got on this webinar, that's fine too. Think about a time where you experienced a negative emotion on a project, and what I want you to do is just type it under that questions box. So type that in. What was a negative emotion? Name it. Name the emotion. Okay? So let's see. So I'm going to tell you what's coming through. So there's some anger, annoyed, insecure, that's a good one, anxiety, crying, I like that one, stress, fear, afraid, unsure, anxious about meeting deadlines, fabulous. Okay, so let me tell you the one that is coming up more and more and more. So I would say 80% of you have, and somebody just put disappointed and worried. That makes me kind of sad. We don't have to have that in project management. So, but anyway, that we'll save that for later. 80, maybe now 90%. Let's say 80% of you have put the word frustrated. Okay, have put the word frustrated. So that's really interesting. So I just want to magnify that if you are doing a project and you are not frustrated, you're not doing it right. Let me say that again. If you are on a project and it's going, and you are not frustrated, at some point, it is not going well. Something is not right. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that either you're doing a project that nobody wants, or you're doing a project without involving the right people, right? You're trying to do it all yourself so you don't have any conflict. And both of those are horrible because at the end, everyone's going to find out that happened. So frustration is a very normal experience, just trying to get all these people that are running around in a million different directions to come together for short periods of time for a common outcome, which is what a project is. Now, there's 2 ways to deal with frustration. You can deal with it in terms of I'm a victim, everybody hates me, you know, eat worms, that kind of stuff. Very, Brittany was talking about this yesterday, scarcity, right? Scarcity and fear related. Protect and defend sort of mentality, and that's a very bad place to be, as you all know. And it certainly doesn't lead to high engagement scores. And then the other side is frustration like this. Well, they're not taking me out with this one. I can do this. Like I'm mad or I'm frustrated, but I use that to kind of power me forward and enable myself. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to put the number now in the question window. How intense was your negative emotion? 1 through 10, and 10 is the most intense. How intense? And I'll tell you, somebody has 60. Okay, that's more than 10. And someone, oh, I thought someone was going to put a fraction there for a minute. No fractions. All right, excellent. So I'm watching these go by, and I would say, you know, completely off the top of my, we have a couple of 10s, actually, so that's pretty dang frustrated. Your boss would not be good to hear about this. A lot of 10s, actually. I'd say probably 10 10s. So let's make the average. I'd say the average is 7 to 8, somewhere in that ballpark. Put in some things. Yeah, someone says 3 to 8. But basically, it depends whether you're working toward a common goal or not, which is so true. So what I'd like you to do now is just type in one factor, one trigger that created that negative emotion for you. What was a trigger? What happened? Just a little trigger, and I'll read some of them to you. Inexperience, distrust, lack of engagement direction, miscommunication is huge, lack of responsibility and executive support, pushback, unclear responsibilities, unclear expectations, surprising lack of understanding by the stakeholders. I love that one. Thought I was on the right path, found out I wasn't. Unrealistic deadline, lack of being prepared. And this is the one that happened to us today. Copy machine broke down. Fabulous. Okay. Those are all great. So a lot of things of lack of accountability, lack of governance or decision making, lack of enough time, lack of focus on quality, lack of enough budget, lack of support from the stakeholders, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so it's still coming. I appreciate the fact that you're emptying your emotional bucket right now. That's awesome. Lack of organization came out again, so that's a good one. So these are all very common project problems, and when we teach our project management class, it's always nice for the students in class because they realize that they're not the only ones that feel that way. Everybody feels the same way. Projects can be very frustrating. They will be at some time, or as we said, you know, it's not working. So now I want you to put a positive emotion that you had on a project recently and put the number next to it this time, 1 to 10, 1 low and 10 being high. So what's some positive emotion you had on a project? Okay, so some people say understanding, satisfaction, relief. I love that one. Success, pride and accomplishment, teamwork, opportunity for growth, pleased with the end product, excitement from the synergy, pride is a good one, relief. This is harder to read because there's so many different ones. Surprised, I like that one. Exposure, that's a good one, Christy. Successful, okay. And the successful ones, there's a lot of 10s on this too, which is fabulous. So when we think about it, I think it's important to notice that the things that are happening on the positive emotion side are much more varied. So we don't have like frustration and anger winning the battle almost completely out of, you know, the 221 of you that are voting. It's all different. It's very, very different. So put the factors in that contributed to your positive emotion. What happened? What was the thing that made it happen? And you put some of that in there already. So you put the emotions, but some people put like teamwork, stuff like that. So collaboration, I had an impact. You know, there's tons of research that shows that people socially need to contribute. And when they can't contribute, it's very devastating. Collaboration, met a milestone, encouragement from the manager. As these fly by, we all have a unique way of getting our sort of reinforcement. So some people on these lists are reinforced by I got it done. Some people need that pat on the back by management is one of the things it says. Some people love learning, so just that learning happened, that makes them excited. Some people just like to check it off or reach a goal. Some people love the teamwork. Now these triggers tend to be much more diverse in our classes than the ones that are negative. Negative, everyone has the same problem, lack of money, lack of budget, blah, 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 lack of everything else, right? So, but in the positive side, it's very unique to the individual and what matters to them. So the message here for project management then is, if you want people who are too busy and have all their own stuff to do, if you want to get them to help you with their project, and you do want to get them to help you with your project, the best way to do it is find out what's in it for them, what motivates them, and speak to that motivation, okay? So I just wanted to let you know that that's something you can leverage. You can check with people and you can say, hey, you can just tell by their behavior that they like to be part of the team. And maybe you think, I don't have time to get, like have team meetings, and they need that. Well, you'd have to, because they're your stakeholder and you have to get them engaged for the project to be successful. So we talk a lot about projects being flash mobs because projects are different nowadays. Most people have multiple projects they're working on. They are trying to get, there's no one dedicated to their team except them. They're trying to get all these other people to help them that have enough work to do already. And I'm sure you can feel this, the sort of always changing topic, all this multitasking. I had a couple of different conversations yesterday, both of which were very scary, that somebody was talking about the evidence that the multitasking that we do every day at work is actually creating a situation where we no longer know how to think strategically. We only know how to think reactively. And if you think about that, that doesn't bode well for projects. Probably happened on this project, though. The picture you see on the screen, how do we know for sure that this project is a failure? How do we know for sure? Put it in the comment window and I'll read it. I'm the only one that can see it. You can't see it, but I can. Okay. How do we know? Okay. Somebody could get killed. I like that. Okay. The pole's in the road. Yes, yes, yes. You'll crash into the pole and you will die. It's dangerous. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Very nice. Pole in the road, pole in the road. Okay. Okay. Now, Rose just put, see where car is heading. So I want you to kind of go with that a little bit. No one checked the checker. I like that, Jason. Okay, so those are all really bad things. This is all terrible. You're completely right. This is all terrible. All these things are terrible. They're like bad features for this project. But what is the measurement of this project? What should be the outcome? The outcome should be the people are able to drive on the road and get where they want to go, right? So we know because there's a car on the road that this is a bad project because it's I guess, done if they let cars on the road, right? So this is a bad project. So you measure bad project by the value to the organization and to the people. And if everyone is on a different page with that, you're in big trouble. So the value to this is you have a road and you can drive on it. This seems to be not totally true here. Now, it could be that the people that pave roads and the people that make telephone poles go into the ground were supposed to, on the project plan, show up the same day, but they didn't. And maybe the pole people are supposed to move that pole, but they are going to now move it in an hour. Even though that's like a trivial thing on paper, it's a really serious thing for this car. So what's the other thing that's happening on projects today? You're working with a lot of different vendors, right? And a lot of different stakeholders inside and outside, and they don't all show up when they're supposed to. Okay, all show up. So this is an example of that. This is our table of contents for our normal project management class. So we kind of see that right here, how we chunk it out. And then I want to show you our little mnemonic, dare to properly manage resources, and you'll see what that stands for in just a minute. This is an example of a good project, and I like to use the motto, bad news early is good news. Tell me, if you're on a project, the earlier you find out bad news, the better, because you have more time to do something about it. This is a building in Tokyo that one of our students had brought some pictures back from. And basically, you think of Tokyo. I've never been to Tokyo, but I think of it as a place that doesn't have a lot of extra room for buildings. So they had some room. They were going to build this building, but the highway also needed a new ramp in that location. And they were able to collaborate together for the good of Tokyo and combine the two projects. So now you have a building with a highway going through floors 5 through 7. And if you look over at the directory that's to the left here, notice it says 5 to 7. That's the highway is renting 5 through 7, and those characters, in theory, someone told me, obviously I don't know this, is it something about the city's highway. Can you imagine the collaboration that had to occur to build a building and a highway ramp together in the middle of such a condensed city? It's just incredible. So it is possible to do amazing things if people come together. We all know that. We probably saw it on Barney and Sesame Street when we were little. It's not new news, right? So how can we get bad news early? Well, the only way to get bad news early is to make sure you're communicating and collaborating all the time. And many of you have been saying that in the chat window, and I appreciate that. The secret to project management is communication, not control. And so we don't believe in control in project management, just so you know. You can't control a project. There's too many missing pieces. So let's talk a little bit about roles. And I'm just giving you kind of an overview of the material from the class, and then I'm going to show you how we use the rocket game, which is super fun. So here's what a project manager's job is. A project manager's only role. So how many of you, just type a Y or an N in the question window when I ask this question, how many of you play the role of project manager and other roles? Put a Y. If you're just a project manager, put an N. Okay, I'm going to look and see if I see any N's. So far, none. Not a one. So we have this image of a project manager being a dedicated resource, right? And that's not the way it's being practiced anymore. Now you're a project manager and you're the developer and you wash the dishes and you bring the kids their dinner, you know, whatever. But you have all these roles you play just on the project. All right, Cheryl, we have one N. Excellent job. Cheryl is a full-time project manager, so she must be really good. Okay, so excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So project manager, basically the role of the project manager, this is all you do. It's a lot, but this is all you do. You plan the future, right? You create the plan of how you're going to implement this project, what steps, blah, blah. You organize whatever stuff has to be done today, and then you manage the surprises that got screwed up yesterday. So it's like pomegranate. Palm, plan, future, organize now, manage the past. That's all you do as a project manager role. That's your job. If you are doing other things, this strategic role of plan, organize, and manage, and someone asked me for the research on that. I had mentioned earlier about we're forgetting how to be strategic. I think it impacts projects as well, and I don't have any citations. These were people that were doing research. So if I can dig something up, I'll include it in a mailing. Okay, so a project manager is planning, organizing, managing. This is all pretty strategic work. There's some some operational stuff here, but you really can't be doing 10 million other things while you're planning, right? That's kind of a whole brain thing. It's like a puzzle, okay? So we have to remember as a person then, if we're a project manager, to hold time on our calendar almost to be a project manager because we're not used to being one. We're used to doing. We're used to checking stuff off. And so what happens is people just keep checking stuff off and then the project's going in a million different ways. It's not useful. Okay, and then the other role that we talk about is the project team. Well, there's no such thing as a project team anymore. It's just you as the project manager. The project team, the ones who are actually going to perform the project activities and produce deliverables, are usually on other projects and have their own work to do. So they're temps. They're basically temps. And so you are temps for someone else's projects too while you're doing your project. So you can see it's highly matrixed, and that's why we talk about it being a flash mob. You come together through email, you do a project dance, you disperse. Now you're on to the next meeting, right? You do some email, you go to this next meeting, you disperse. And it's very difficult to get anything productively done. So that's basically what we're trying to do with our project management process. We're trying to figure out how can we get more focus on things and getting things done in collaboration versus, just checking off the little thing that was easy to do. So the project manager is a steward of the project, and what I mean by that is they don't own the project. You don't own the project. Put in the chat window, or in the question box, sorry, put in the question box, how do you behave if you think you own the project? How do you behave? How do you behave? Yeah, so see, all these are very negative. Okay, bossy. Some people say confident and friendly. Yeah, so there's different ways, I suppose. But in general, if you think it's all up to me, you're going to be fighting for that, right? You're going to be fearful that you're going to make a mistake and very protective. So there's some fierce that's a good word. Okay, very nice. So, because you can't be 100% responsible if you're borrowing all these other people. So those are great concerns. So a steward is more like a really important nanny for your kids. They're real important, but the big decision should be made by the business, or in this case, the parents, right, if it were a steward. So as we move on and we look at the most important member of the project team is the project sponsor. And the project sponsor is in general, not always, but think of them as an executive or a leader at least. And the leader has thought about this project and has thought, if we do this thing, we'll make money. We'll get some kind of return on investment, or we'll drive cost out or whatever. So we should do this. And then they turn to you and say, let's do this because it's a really good idea, providing you with hopefully some resources. They're responsible for the return on investment. They are not responsible for the weeds. You're the project manager. The project sponsor will not care how you put the project together, what the tasks are, blah, blah, blah. The project sponsor wants to know, when's it going to be done and when am I going to get that return? That's all they care about. They can help you make political decisions, and sometimes you need that. A lot of times you need that. But don't expect them to even appreciate how far you walked in the snow to get the project done. That's not their problem. Their problem is bringing a return to the business. So their perspective is very high and not detailed. Your perspective as project manager is very low and quite detailed. So let's take a little quiz on this. Let's see if we can figure out what's the difference between these two roles. So we'll just, in this case, put in the question window, just put S or M. That sounds weird. S or M. Who provides status reports to stakeholders, do you think? Okay, so most people say manager, yes, because that's like work. And plus, the sponsor would never mess with that if you think of them as an executive. Okay, good. Who assigns tasks to people? Okay, so who assigns tasks to people? Stay on their M. There you go. There's a couple S's, but mostly this is manager too. So this is more in the weeds, right? Here, you should do this, you should do this. They even figure out who the people are. Who determines the business objectives? This is a return on investment. Right, so this should be the sponsor. Now, a lot of times the sponsor doesn't know how to do this. They have no idea how to do this, actually. And so they basically, you may have to create the business objectives for them and then give them to them as choices, right? So a lot of times, we did a webinar recently for Training Magazine Network on cultivating sponsors. It is extremely important for a project manager to know how to grow their sponsor if they have one that is not really sure how to be a sponsor, which is, in my opinion, most of them. Okay, so you should be making your sponsor, someone said to me yesterday, a hero. You should make your sponsor look good. It is the one thing that correlates most to project success, is a good sponsor. And if you don't have one, it's not too bad for you. You can fix that. Okay, how about determines the project objectives? Is that sponsor or manager? Yep, manager again. Good. M's win. How about who recommends what to do when money, time, or quality are threatened? Who recommends? Okay, we have a couple of different. These are more varied. Okay, I think some people are putting both. I think the manager recommends because they see it first, but you're right, the decider, right? So when you're a project manager, you're going to say, I have this problem, and then you're going to figure out at least one solution, maybe two solutions, because executives love to have choices. So they hate blank paper, though. They don't want the whole problem. They just like choices. So you would take the two choices that you figured out, and you would go, sponsor, we have this problem. Here's one solution. Here's the other solution. I believe we should do this one. Which one do you want to do? Okay, so the decider is still the sponsor. Excellent. Excellent. And a lot of you got that. Good job. Okay, it also depends how you define all these things. This is our project management plan. I'm just going to share it with you pretty quickly. And this is, as you can see, there's little words under the arrows. Those are the PMBOK words. Those are from PMI.org. Okay, those are PMI.org, and PMI is Project Management Institute. So those are what we would call the traditional words. I've put sort of what I believe to be easier words on top here. So if you have notes or you're writing something down, the define phase, the very first one there, answers the question for you, for the project manager and for the company, organization, answers the question why, W-H-Y. So define answers the question why. Why are we spending money on this project instead of doing something else? That's all. That's what and the outcome, the deliverable of the define phase, is a project charter, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Okay, so the project charter's job is to basically bound what we're trying to do, bound the problem. Okay, so it's why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? What is the business value? And if this is the business value, what are the things we need to do that? But it's very high level, and we talk about doing a project charter in 45 minutes or less. Okay, now plan then, once I do a project charter, plan is how. So now I know why we're doing the project. Now I can figure out all the steps I need to get the project done, which is what a project plan is. We usually call the outcome of this a project schedule. There's some terminology differences in the way people use the word project plan. So we would call the outcome the project schedule. So define answers why, the outcome or deliverable is project charter. Plan answers how do we get this done? And the output is the project schedule or project plan if you want. So now we're actually starting the project and manage. We're starting to work the plan. So this word I like to use is adapt, A-D-A-T-P, the P-T, adapt, right? Because it's not going to go the way it went on plan. There's no way. Nobody is perfect enough to be able to predict the future that I've met yet. So something is going to change. So we're going to have to be able to adapt. Now you'll notice right under there is my least favorite word, and that is control. And so what I want everyone to do is I literally want you to do this. Point with your finger to the screen at that word control right now, just your pointer finger. Are you doing it? Okay. Point at that word control. Now make a big X on it, an imaginary X. Cross it out. Because there's no control in project management. You can manage, you can adapt, but you can't control all by yourself. It can't be done. Or else you're going to build the wrong thing. Okay? So beautiful. Okay. Execute is probably, I would say, Cindy, would be part of manage in this case. Okay? Execute the plan. Okay. So down here, in manage, the end of manage in theory is a sort of a done project, right? But it hasn't been transitioned into usefulness yet. So that's a thing. And then review is learn. How'd it go? We're going to turn over the deliverables. We're going to transition, and maybe if we had time, we'd have a celebration, but it's on to our other 10 projects. Okay. So this is just an overview, and I'll show you some of the books if you're interested in learning more about this. This is the overview that we run through with our classes. And so the Dare to Properly Manage Resources that I mentioned earlier is just the first letter of each of these bubbles, of each of these phases. Helps you remember that. Okay, all projects have a start and end, so that really matters. Really, really, really matters. There are the books now. Yay. Okay, so now let me tell you how we use the rocket game. So the rocket game comes with girders. You can kind of see the rocket up in the top right-hand corner. So if any of you teach project management or a lot of other things, I'll talk about that at the end as well, this is a great game for teaching project management. So you have wood, like kind of plastic girders that have holes on them like popsicle sticks. You have nuts and bolts in a little jar, and you have, of course, HRDQ probably does the best job of any company in putting, all the teaching notes and everything you need in a book so you can learn how to do it. But it also has one screwdriver, and it has blueprints, and I'll show you a close-up of that in a minute. And so this is what we would put up on the screen with our folks. It says your team is going to be given the blueprint and supplies to build a two-dimensional rocket. It's a competitive bid. So you're trying to bid on how long it's going to take you to build this rocket. And then we list, well, here's some constraints. Your cost is based on how many people are building the rocket. So if you lay off some people, you might be able to save some money, in other words. Your rocket will be tested by comparing it to the blueprint. It has to be exactly like the blueprint. And whoever is the facilitator of the class, or somebody else could even come in and do this, we have, like I always say, I'm the sponsor, so I have to approve it. You can transfer people to headquarters. This is what I was just saying. You're not laying people off. They become our consultants and observers if you want to manage that labor cost. And history indicates that your estimate should be less than 35 minutes. On average, people in class, it usually takes, on average, I would say it takes 30 minutes. And then I always promise you will not run out of supplies. So then I give them 5 minutes to put on a Post-it, number of people, number of minutes to complete. They're in teams usually of 3 to 5 people. Okay, so you have, you can have as many teams as you want, basically, depending on, I think the kit comes with 4 sets. So you could have 4 teams. So 3 to 5 people. I usually also, because I'm nutty, I usually also ask them to put on the Post-it a silly name. right, of a team name, come up with a team name, so that helps them build a little community. And of course, you could probably predict what they're going to put. Everyone's always a Rocketeer or something to do with rockets. Okay, rockets. So anyway, so this is kind of when you buy this, if you've ever used it, maybe you've already used it already, this is kind of the way we would tee it up, the way it's designed. Now, a couple of things that I have been doing differently, and one of them is that I have kind of let go of the labor thing, because I kind of, now I just make it that it's just about the minutes, not labor and minutes. Because the labor thing, I wanted everybody more involved. So that's just another variation. You can do it that way or you cannot do it that way. It doesn't matter. One of the things that really screws them up is the comparing it to the blueprint. Because, first of all, they don't leave time for finding me to review the blueprint. They just finish the rocket and then everyone goes, I'm done, I'm done. And I go, no, you're not done. I haven't approved it yet. The customer hasn't approved it yet. There's also, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there's also some slightly tricky stuff on the blueprint that people ignore and build without doing it, and then they have to rebuild, which makes people really crazy. Then you'd for sure go over 30 minutes. Okay? So that's but they won't run out of supplies. That's not a lie, usually. Okay, so those are sort of some of the variations just for this one little bit that I wanted to show you. What do you think? You think how many, if I have 4 teams in the room, how many people do you think, or I shouldn't say, how many teams do you think are successful in getting this done in 30 minutes and the quality's right? How many teams do you think are successful? Okay, so very interesting. So somebody said 75%. There's a couple of high numbers, but most of them are 1s, 0s. Yeah, very few. Okay. If you have done this before, tell me what your ratio is when you've done it. So anybody that's actually done this before? Okay, so we got some people coming in that have used it. Great. So what do you think your ratio out of 4? 1 out of 5. Yeah, 1 out of 5. So that's about what ours is. I would say 1 or 2 at the most, right, in this situation. All right, excellent. Okay, yeah, someone's saying 25%, so we're all in about the same. Good. That's good. It's not that we're all bad teachers. That's just the way it is. So it's kind of a negative experience in the sense that at the end, you've basically proven to them that they're not really very good at project management, right? So that's good. That's good learning content. So I think it's very useful to use this approach when you have a mixed group of people who are taking project management and you have a handful that think they're God's gift to project management and they have all the certifications and they are just sure that they're better than everyone else, and you have these other novices and they all struggle. So I like using it for that because that kind of solidifies the audience, that they all have a need and they all have things that we can debrief. Yeah, and Kathy makes a good point. Most people aren't good at reading directions. That's true. That's that whole strategic thinking brain again, yeah. Right? So I think it's really good for that. I think it's really good to open up people's eyes to the nuances of project management. This has nothing to do with critical path or project management software, right? This is just you didn't talk to somebody. You didn't think long enough. You didn't plan. You didn't do a chart or you didn't plan. So what we do in our Project Management for Learning Professionals workshop is we give them this, they fill out the Post-it, they're all so excited, they've already started sorting colors for no good reason, like people make up weird stuff to do, and laying everything out and clearing the table so they have enough room. And then we tell them the bad news. And the bad news is that we're not going to let them do it right now. And I'll come back to it in a minute and tell you about that. We're not going to let them do it right now. And they go, what? Because they're all ready to go. They made up this totally bogus number in 5 minutes, and they knew nothing about what they were doing. And they're all ready to go. They're sure they're right, and then we stop them. In the way it's written in the book, you would not. You would go ahead and let them do it, and it'd be 1 out of 5 or whatever, 2 out of 5 perhaps. Now this is a little bit another little view of what the blueprint looks like. And you will have enough parts, but you only have 1 screwdriver. And people are saying that it's funny because everyone fixates on the screwdriver, and a lot of people have, especially guys, they have some kind of screwdriver or knife or something. Can we use this, in their pockets? And they're like, yeah, fine, whatever, that's cool. Right, right. So, so they have one copy of the blueprint, which can be an issue, and I asked them not to write on it. Some people slip out and make copies of it. Some people have gotten very creative now and take pictures with their cell phones so that they can all work in at different ends of the table at the same time. So there's lots of creativity there. So, so this is how it would work. Now, I would say, I wanted to ask you, but I think I've already told you, it's so all over the board. I was going to ask you, if you and 2 other people did this, how long do you think it would take you to build it? Okay, considering you have all the parts and 1 screwdriver, what do you think? What do you think you could do? And I've given you a lot of information now. So we got 26, 20, 20. Ooh, somebody's going with the 10. That always cracks me up. No one's ever done it in 10 in my presence. So awesome. Now it's a dare. Yeah, so when I told you 30, 35, so some people, right, perfect. Now, also remember that we teed this up as a competitive bid. So the trick is to have enough time but also win the bid, right? So I've put extra pressure on the people to go low on this. Now, the other variation that we do, and so they've gone low. Okay, we actually have them put it away, as I said, in our project management class, and this next part is going to be basically, I would say, 2.5 to 3 hours. So we say, okay, you learned how to do a project charter, put it away, do a project charter. You have 30 minutes to do a project charter of building this rocket. So they all moan and groan, and they're very sad, okay? And then they do the project charter, and this is a front page of our project charter. It's got a back page as well. We are going to put a little offer up in a minute if you'd like to get this project charter template. But basically, they have to figure out, why are you building this project? What, they have to fill out all these things. So what would be the business objective of the project chart, of the building the rocket? Well, people don't know. I'm like, well, who would you ask? Who would you ask? So go ahead and put it in the chat window or in questions. So you're in this room. You have a first thing it asks you is, what's the return on investment of this? Who would you ask? Right, the sponsor. I'm like, me. And they go, well, why do you want to build this? I go, I'm testing out a team building game that I want to sell. Oh, it's increased revenue. I get it. And I go, and you are all my pilot groups, and I'm going to compare all of you and make sure, because if you can build it too quickly, it's not going to be fun. And if it takes too long, it's not going to be fun. So we got to try to hit that sweet spot, right? So we're really, really treating this as a real project, a very small project, but a real project. And they fill out all this, like they fill out the risk, and they come up with this risk, that, oh, what if the project sponsor's talking to someone else when we need her? Stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. They fill out the whole project charter. And that takes less than 30 minutes, basically. They also do what we call a scope diagram. And the scope diagram kind of looks like this. I'm going to show you another one. It's this one looks like a hairball. This is the real one. And our project scope diagram in our charter has the project in the middle. This isn't the rocket project. This is another one that we do as a sample. It's a United Way Day of Caring. And all those red squares are the stakeholders you need to get, and in a sense, the roles that need to do work to make a volunteer day project a wonderful thing. So they build this for the rocket. There's not very many stakeholders. There's a project manager. They usually have a QA person, and they sometimes have a supply person who's in charge of getting the supplies to the people who are building things together. Okay, so they do all this stuff for the project, for the rocket game. This is the back page. So if you want to email Brittany right now, she's awaiting your email. She will send you the project charter template so you can take a look at it. And I will tell you, especially some of you that you may be like very, very, especially the person who all she does is one project, this is real light. So the point of this project charter is this is the absolute minimum you would do in a project charter. You must do a project charter. If you take nothing away from this, do a project charter every time you have a project, okay, every single time. Because what happens is people skip them and just build a schedule. Well, how can you build a schedule when you don't even know what you're doing? That's crazy talk, okay? So this project charter, and I always tell people, why do I say 45 minutes? And they go, I don't know, why do you say it? I said, if I said 4 hours, would you do it? And they said, no. Okay, that's why. It's 45 minutes or less. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. You have too many projects, you wouldn't be able to get it done. Yeah, and if you could go ahead and email everybody to Brittany, that would be great, so she doesn't have to cut all those out of the out of the window that we're having trouble getting to. That'd be awesome. Okay, so that's the project charter. So here's what happens. They go through the charter, and this is a charter template right here on the table, right? You can see people playing the rocket game. These are people from our actual classes. So they fill out the project charter, and at the end of the project charter, I let them change their number if they want, how many minutes. And almost all of them do, because now they know more about it. So we basically are tracking the accuracy. Then they build a schedule, and they basically have to build a table about what everybody's doing for the whole whatever number of minutes they said, okay? And so they build the schedule, and they can track whatever. And then they realize, oh, we want our project sponsor on our schedule. That's one of the red squares. So they come to me and they go, can you have a meeting at 12 minutes? Yep, and I have this little chart I have to keep up to date of when they want to meet with me and have quality and communication planning and governance and all that kind of jazz. So it's super fun. So then they've done the charter. That took 30 minutes. They do the schedule. That usually takes about 45 minutes. That's a little bit harder. And then we implement. And how many, so we said over here under first guess, we said in the beginning in the ratio, I would say 1 to 2 or out of 5 people are successful. And after doing the charter and schedule, what do you think it would be out of 5? How do you think it's impacted? Okay, so we got a 3 to 4. Nice, good. So I might have screwed you up because I did it out of 4 last time, and this time I said 5. Okay, so my data analytics are probably not great. So good guesses. I would say in almost in every class, it's very normal that they'd all be successful. They don't all win. I mean, they still have to be before other people and think they won, right? There's still always a race, even though it's not in the project at all. People create a natural race, which is kind of funny. But in general, we only have, it's the opposite. The most we'd have that didn't get it done under 30 minutes would be probably 1 at the most. And they're all, they're so happy, they did the whole thing, and every step of the way. So whether it was the first guest, they get to, after the project charter, they get to change their estimate. After the schedule, they get to change their estimate, and then they go. And then someone comes up to me and says, can we have a little extra time? Because I say at the beginning, my goal is quality. I want to see how this works. And I go, yeah. And so they go, I can? I go, yeah, how much do you need? They go, 10 minutes. Okay. So then they were even able to change, if they asked, they were even able to change their estimate during the project. Okay. So this kind of led to learning more about the value of the charter and the schedule, the value of collaboration and communication, but it does take a big chunk of time. So I would tell you, by the time you debrief this and everything, it's going to be pretty much a half day. So that's the difference. So if you want to do something quick and prove that people could get better at project management, use it the way it is in the box, in the bag, I should say. This is the way we do it to extend it out because it's a great proof of what we did the first day in class. So on the first day of class, people build their own project charter for a real project that they're working on. And then we take them back in the next morning and run this to prove how important that charter is. It's like gold. It is so important. Okay. So if you have any questions about the process that I spoke about, go ahead and throw it in the question window, and I will kind of differentiate between those and answer those for you. I also wanted to point out to you that there's no law that says you have to use the rocket game for project management training. You can use it for whatever you want. It's tremendous for leadership. So you could use it for leadership, divide it up in teams, blah, 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 and then however you do it, okay? However you do it is you can do leadership. It's well worth it. You don't ever have to replace it, though, right, Lisa? You could just get it, and they're going to give you a little deal here in a minute anyway. But with leadership, what you can do is you can actually have people reflect on who took leadership and how, right? Who took leadership and how, okay? So that's really an awesome thing you can do. You can use team collaboration and difficult conversations. You can use it to learn about what was it that brought us together and work as a whole, what drove us from working together as a whole, and also just how were we able to have those difficult conversations. One time, a guy came up to me in class this is when we were doing the original version, right, where this was at a speech, so we did it as part of an hour-and-a-half presentation. And so they were doing the rocket, and this guy came up to me and goes, "We're done." And I go, "No, you're not done. It's not like the blueprint." And he had missed that thing I don't want to tell you. And then he goes, "You never told us it had to be exactly like the blueprint." And I was just cracking up. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the meaning of a blueprint. It was awesome. The other thing, so you can talk about team collaboration. Sometimes what we do, I don't know if any of you use profiles, but sometimes you could use like the profiles from HRDQ or whatever profiles you have. We use DISC and some TTI products. But what you can do is you can divide people up by their profiles and not tell them. And so you could have a group of highly intense driving people kind of doing a rocket together, and then you could have the schmoozers doing a rocket together, and then you could have the slow and steady people doing a project together, and then you could have the control freak compliance people doing a project together. And it is amazing to watch. And actually that causes some wonderful debriefs if you add your profiles to them, because people have been able to see the actual behavior of these people. Great for EQ, of course, because we're kind of shaking them up there. So to get them to pause, and I think this is the most important, regardless of which way you do this, you always need to, when you're using these very deep and very, very professional and also but very insightful simulations, you need to give lots of time to think about it, to think alone, to be aware of my own emotions and what just happened to me and why did I get so upset or why didn't I get so upset. Really important. Not even if you're teaching EQ, you need to give people a lot of time to process before you move on to whatever you're doing next. It's very important because these are very deep, deep, deep experiences. And they're very much like the real world, so people go into the real world, and so the conflict is real. So make sure you give yourself enough time to debrief. Tiagi used to say, I don't know if he still says this, but he told me one time, your debrief should be as long as your activity, which that's a lot. I don't think I ever hit that, but I think that is a good goal. Managing priorities, right? That you could have a whole debrief just around that, about how do we choose who was going to do what, how do we choose what was going to happen first, et cetera. And then just, of course, about working with others. Anybody think of other topics that you teach or areas of your business that you teach that this would be useful? I'm just kind of interested to see how you would use it. So one of the things that we joke about all the time is just because we build it about this doesn't mean you have to use it about this, right? You can use it for so many different things. So anybody have any ideas about other ways to use it? Oh, diverse thinking, that's a great idea. Yeah, and figuring out how, if you could pause at certain times and say, look at the way people are processing this different and talk about it and see if you can include them, as Paula puts that in there too, inclusion. Yeah, great for team collaboration and building also. Excellent. Yeah, so excellent. So thank you. Yeah, so someone says, and this is true, I think it's a stressed out world for sure, but she said, I find people carry so much personal baggage that has not been dealt with that hampers progression in assignments. So I think maybe, Cheryl, that might have been part of the reason that I took it now to helping them be successful by using good tools versus proving that they're bad at project management. I think that might have been part of my drive. Building high-performance teams, perfect. And I love the transparency. One of the things that happens in this is real funny is you have 4 teams that are sitting pretty close to each other in a room, and they basically, one team goes, we're done. And then the sponsor, probably me, comes over and says, oh no, you didn't follow the blueprint, you missed that thing, right? You missed the thing. And they go, oh, what? And the people are sitting right next to them, and we're not even being quiet. But they're so heads down in their own little world that they don't hear the answer that these people just got, which would have saved them. And that's always amazing to me, that all you have to do is kind of look and see what other people are doing. There's no reason not to. But it's almost like we're competing. So we have to not look at each other. It's very strange. So one of the things I do want to share with you also is my second favorite, or maybe my favorite game. I've been talking about this forever. My favorite game might be the Common Currency game at HRDQ. We have used this in so many leadership programs. And that one, if you have people who are very analytical, like if you have IT people or engineering people or that kind of thing, the Rocket is good for that as well. But this has math with it. And you don't have all the facts, which really frustrates people. We're using this in our EQ workshop right now just to help people manage when they don't have all the answers or the answers are changing. So this is just I think this is a very, very powerful simulation too. I love this one. Just got to teach it about a week ago. So super fun. It does get a little emotional. We taught a big leadership group one time, and one team, they had breakout rooms, so they actually were in different rooms. It's different currency. It's basically different countries negotiating a common currency, like a euro. Okay, and they all start with different pieces of information and different coins. So they're in their room strategizing, and at some point they captured another country and wouldn't let them out. I mean, that is lots of weird stuff can happen with this if you have an intense leadership. In fact, I would tell you that the higher in leadership people are, the more crazy stuff happens, which is kind of funny. So anyway, so this kind of gives you an idea of how we grow project management and leadership performance with these tremendous tools. It's fabulous, and people don't want to sit there and listen to you talk. I would like to thank Brad, he's the king of HRDQ, for buying me a drink and also for allowing me to be on this webinar today. And if you have any questions, we're ready to take them. So with that, I think I'll switch to this, and then Sarah's going to share some stuff with you as well. Brittany is putting right now into the chat window. You can see that there's a link that you can look for some discounts. Okay, promo code between now and Saturday, and she'll tell you what that's going to get you. The Managing Project books, I didn't see it. So my latest book is this one on the right bottom, is Managing Projects. Okay, and that has everything we talked about and influencing skills in the middle. I call it like an Oreo. Project planning and charter, and then implementation and review, and in the middle is influencing skills. So who has questions?
All right, great, Lou. Thanks so much. Yep, we do have a little bit of time for that Q&A. So attendees, go ahead, just submit those into that questions box right there. And while we wait for some of those questions to filter in, let me just share a little bit more about the program that is the foundation of today's session, and that is Rocket. The project management game comes with one facilitator guide with the CD, 4 rocket tubes, and 4 blueprints. And then for joining us today, we are actually offering a 30% discount. And you can go ahead and try that for 30 days risk-free. Just go ahead and use that coupon code at HRDQstore.com.
See, I told you they were going to offer you something really cool. And I want to tell you, when she says CD, that's not music to play during the Rocket game. That's all the PowerPoint, everything you need, so it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It is. All right, now we do have some questions coming in, so I'm going to get to that first one, which is coming from Cheryl. How can you get people to leave you alone at the end of a project and stop making changes?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, so here's the bad news. If it's the end of the project and that's happening, there's not much you can do. The way to preempt that is to do a project charter and build relationships with these people and communicate with them throughout the whole project. People show up at the end because they didn't go to any of your meetings, right? But you have to draw them in. So really the solution to that is in the project chartering and your collaboration. I guess that's good news or bad news, I don't know.
All right, let's see. Looks like our next one's coming from Cindy. Please differentiate charter from scope and project management, not schedule.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So the project charter, the project scope diagram is part of the project charter. So that's a really good question. But it's my favorite part of the project charter, so I talk about it all the time like it's something not different, and it isn't. It's part of the project charter. The reason I call it the project schedule and not the project plan is you probably know, Cindy, that in the PMBOK, project plan means charter and schedule together, and we like to differentiate them as being separate. So charter and schedule, that's why we use the terminology that way. Okay, excellent.
Great, thanks. And let's see, our next question is coming from Kathy. What is the best way to be more accurate in your estimates of how long other people's tasks will take?
Oh, that's awesome. And Kathy goes, I just answered that first question myself. Yay, good job. Okay, so some of you are going to hate this answer. I think we spend a lot of time guessing how long it's going to take someone else to do a task, and we're wrong. Almost always, right? Because the question, well, let's say I say, Brittany, it's going to take Brittany 4 hours to reply to the questions and the follow-up for this webinar. I have no idea what Brittany does. Well, I do, but a little bit, right? It's just preposterous and kind of like pompous of me to go, Brittany, you have 4 hours. Now, here's the other part of the problem. Is it 4 hours uninterrupted with nothing else going on? Or is it 4 hours on the clock? Or is it 4 hours and I'll get it in 2 weeks? So there's so much confusion about things like duration and task length of time and people length of time. If there is any way that you can do it, I suggest you use due dates, milestones, instead of duration. And so I could say to Brittany, I'd like that follow-up done by end of the day tomorrow. When you fit it in is fine. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that would be my, which is not very standard. Sorry about that, but that's what I believe.
All right, great, thank you. And our next question is coming from Tim. How can you control a project more effectively?
Stop controlling it. So that's the answer. The answer is you have to kind of get in yourself and go, I am a servant to these people, and I am the steward as the project manager, and my job is to connect them and involve them. I'm just almost like a very friendly router. As the project manager, I don't have any right to tell them what to do. The project is owned by the sponsor and these other people. So I have to change my whole mentality, and if I seek first to build collaboration and build relationships, you know who your go-to people are that you like, that get things done. No matter what you ask, they're going to be there. You're creating that same situation. And the most important one is the sponsor, because without the sponsor, you're not going to be able to do anything. So you really have to build them.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. And we probably just have time for one more question, and that last question is going to be coming from Kyra. I'm finding that governance seems to mean something different to everyone. How would you define governance with respect to creating a governance plan?
Yeah, so that's great. So when I talk about governance, I'm talking about who gets to make what decisions. And so one of the things that happens on a project is everybody assumes everybody can make all decisions. So the most important decision is who gets the final sign-off on the project being done. So who is that? Now, you assume it would be the sponsor, but it isn't always the sponsor. Sometimes, like Cheryl was talking about, she has some sort of community board or council. So all 9 of them would probably have. So I need to know that. I need to know that. Who are the people that get to sign off on the end of the project so I can end the thing? Because, sometimes it's really hard to end a project. The other question is, who in the stakeholder group is allowed to change the budget, is allowed to change the dates, is allowed to change the scope or the quality? And so if I get really explicit about that in the project charter, I have more power going forward because I've built sort of an agreement, right, a contract with everybody saying, look, here's who can play and who cannot play in these different areas. It's not that hard. It's just, time, budget, and quality, and done. And get your sponsor to, kind of support you on this, because if you're trying to do it at the end, you can't do it because everyone's mad at each other. I do want to say one more thing to Cheryl because of her answer about you can't collaborate with 68 people, and that's kind of true. I have some other thoughts about that, but that's not really where I want to go with that right now. What you have to do, Cheryl, is you have to be very devious, and you have to, again, you have to cultivate the council member that plays that helps you manage that council. So even if they're not a sponsor, they're all supposed to be equal. You need to go find your fave, right? Find your secret best friend. Okay.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. We had some great questions. And I'm going to go ahead and look through that questions box. And if we do have any unanswered questions, we'll be sending those out in an email, probably about mid-next week with Lou's responses. So Lou, would you just like to add any final thoughts before I go?
I would. Thank you so much, everyone. We had a great group on here. You are obviously very experienced in projects, and more importantly, you really care about your work and really care about making a commitment to your organization, so I very much appreciate that. If we can help you with anything, let us know. Brittany's got her stuff down there in the email, in the chat window. And I really want to thank Sarah, because I'm the one that gave her a different deck right before this started. So that was totally me. So don't be hating on her. That was totally me. And Brad, if you are on this thing with some other name, I am going to find you. So thanks to HRDQ for all they do. Love them. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Thank you so much, Lou. And for everybody who is on the line, we appreciate your time, and we do hope you found today's webinar informative. Thank you.